Mrs. Bobsky's broom, the staircase at JUCO, getting lucky and can't remember the name of the town. Emporia, getting lucky in Emporia. And Mike really gets lucky, and why we stayed best friends. I first met Mike in 1956. I was a freshman, he was a sophomore. I came from a little elementary school with a total population of about 50. And here I am at Washington High School with a population of about 1,000. And I am overwhelmed. And Mike had his locker about 2 doors down from here, 2 lockers down. And I was really struggling with the combination. I'd never seen a combination lock before in my life without it working. So he helped me out on that. Come to find out we had the same first class together, which was, and some of you might remember this name, Bill Ty Green taught math, and we were in the first hour together. So the first few weeks, Mike kind of took me under his arm, showed me around how to get to the locker room and all that kind of stuff. And we kind of stuck it off. We didn't become real good friends right off. Later on that spring, Mike calls me up and said, "Hey, Porter, Jim Bobsky's having a kegger in his backyard. You want to come over?" And I said, "Well, okay." So I go over there. I'm 14 years old. I might have had 3 beers in my whole life. And they put me in charge of keeping the keg from which was a big mistake. And I am really getting deep. And then somebody said, "Well, let's call some girls from Wyandotte and have them come out to the party." And they did. And by that time, I was really and I was chasing these girls around the yard. And they were screaming, and I was, and all of a sudden, this lady come off the back porch with a broom and just starts beating the whole snot out of me. And the next afternoon, I wake up in Mike's driveway in the backseat of my car, and he says, "Porter," he said, "we got to go to the Bobskys." I said, "Oh, I don't know if I want to go over there or not." He said, "Well, we got to clean up the backyard." I said, "Oh, okay." So we walk up on the front porch, and Mike knocks on the door. He says, "Mrs. B?" She says, "Yeah." He said, "I got somebody here that wants to see you." And she says, "Who?" "Well, he wants to know where your broom is." "Well, it's in the kitchen." Okay. So we go in. Mike sort of block it for me. And she says, "Are you the one I was banging on with the broom last night?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, did I hurt you?" And I said, "No, but you should have." And that story kind of carries on probably 25 years later. And I hadn't seen a lot of Mr. and Mrs. Bobsky for quite a while. And Mr. Bobsky had died. And they were having a wake there at Butler Funeral Home on Minnesota, I guess it was, right across from Porter's. And Mike was supposed to meet me there, Mike and Judy, but they had something come up and they had to leave early. So I was standing in the reception line, and I got up to Mrs. Bobsky and I said, "She's not going to know me from that." And I reached over and said, "Mrs. Bobsky, do you still have your broom?" And she looked at me and started laughing. And she said, "Were you the one I beat up with my broom?" And I said, Did I hurt you? I said, no, ma'am. I deserved every bit of it. So, and that was 20-some or maybe 30-some years later, and she still remembered her broom and giving me the big sweep. My junior year and my senior year, our football team was unwinnable. We hadn't won a game. We were like 0-6. And Mike is on the cross-country team. The only reason he's on the cross-country team is because his baseball and basketball coach make him go out for a sport to keep him in shape. And that year, the cross-country team wins the state championship. So we're out at football practice, and we just finished this drill called the bull in the ring, and we're, holding the light. And Mike comes prancing over, and hey, you guys won any games yet? And we looked at him, and we just won the state championship. And somebody from the back says, get it! And we take off after him. And we run him all the way into the school building, and the only thing that saved him was Hope Neal, the cross-country coach, was coming out, and he was praising Mike for running so fast at practice. He didn't know that we were chasing him. So we kind of bummed around together a little bit, but Mike goes to Emporia. The year after that, I go to Pittsburgh. And I don't do well at Pittsburgh. I party way too much and flunk out. And I think Mike did the same thing.
Are you trying to follow in his footsteps?
So we're going to go to JUCO and get our grade point average back up. Now JUCO is not the one at 75th or whatever it is in State Avenue. It's the old one downtown. And there's a brick building on the north side of the road and one on the south side of the road. The one on the south side has the gym and a swimming pool and some other stuff. The one on the north side of the road is like 2 stories, and there's where all the classrooms are. Well, in 1959, the year that Mike graduated, there were several girls from Washington that were in a terrible automobile. One girl was killed, several were injured, and one girl, Joanne Sabelka, was paralyzed from the waist down. When we decided to go to JUCO to get our grade point average up, I think Liz, Mike's mom, and Joanne Sabelka's mom were good friends. Anyway, Mike volunteered us to take Joanne to school every morning, which meant that we had to carry her up about 20 steps, wooden steps. Of course, I got the carrying, and Mike got to carry the wheelchair. And at the end of the day, we would meet her at the head of the stairs. I would put her in my arms, and she would put her arms around my neck, and I would walk down the stairs with her, and Mike would carry the chair. One day, it was snowing and raining, and the stairs going up were old. They were kind of rounded off, and they were wet and slippery. So I go up to the top of the stairs, pick Joanne up. Now, Joanne doesn't weigh much more than a corn muffin, but she has this big full dress on. And I'm trying to carry her down the stairs, trying to look this way, and I can't see him. And Mike's in front of me about 4 or 5 steps, carrying a wheelchair. And I get to about 4 steps from the bottom, and I miss one, and I slip. And I'm staggering down the stairs with Joanne in my arms, and there's some glass doors right at the bottom. Oh God, I can't go through those doors. So I hit the bottom and kind of turned and get stopped. And Joanne leans over and whispers in my ear, she says, I think I wet my pants. And I looked at her and said, I did. And we looked over at Mike, and he's standing there going in his own little puddle of pee.
Oh.
So that was one incident that you never forget. Joanne goes on, marries a guy named Jim Higby, and I think they have, I don't know, 4 or 5, 3 girls, three kids, and all from a wheelchair. She had one gritty girl. And this was all in the winter of 61, 62. That same winter, Mike and I were at Sammy's, a bar down about 6th, 7th Street, something like that. Kind of a ward hangout.
Yeah.
And Sammy's was known for its dance floor. It was in the back room, and there was not one light in the place. The only light that there was when somebody opened the bathroom door to the women's bathroom, and you could see somebody sitting on the pot. That was the only light, other than the jukebox. Anyway, we had been there, and we were on our way home, and it was freezing rain. And I had an old 55 Ford red and white convertible. And we get to 51st and Pearl. In fact, John Miller lives right there in that corner. And we're creeping over the hill, and I'm just barely moving. And get over the hill, and I tap the brakes, and it's nothing. So we're going over the hill, my lights are on right, and down at the bottom, there are about 5 cars piled up at the bottom. Plus, there's a big drop-off on both sides. So I look over at Mike and said, hey, we're not getting this stopped. He said, put your feet up on the dashboard and we'll ride her down. And that's what we did. And the closer we got to the cars down at the bottom, there were some guys in the back seat, and their eyes got bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden they were out, getting out of the car. And after it was all over, I think there were 7 cars in that wreck. The only person who got hurt was a guy cut his hand. That was it. But that was a memorable occasion. That spring, Mike calls me up and he says, Porter, he says, you want to go to Emporia? I said, why would I want to go to Emporia? He said, well, this gal called me, they're having a sorority dance, and she invited us. I said, Emporia, that's 100 miles away. He says, yeah, but we might get lucky. I said, yeah, right, we might get lucky. So I said, okay, I've got nothing better to do. So we get in the car, drive down there, and we're there about an hour and a half too early before the dance starts. So Mike says, hey, let's go up to the Eagles Club. I've been up there a lot. So we go to the Eagles Club, have a hamburger, a pitcher of beer, and they've got 4 slot machines around the corner from the bar that pay off. People in Kansas City can't just know about pinball machines that pay off. Anyway, we all get rolls of quarters or dimes, I think it was. And we're pumping money into these jukeboxes, and they're starting to pay off. And we're making some fairly good money. And one gets stuck, and it just keeps racking up gain. And here's the bartender up there, and he's looking around the corner, he's hearing this, and he keeps looking, and I tell him, Mike, I says, hit it, make it, quit. And Mike starts pounding on it, trying to, and he can't do it, it just keeps racking up. And finally, I reach over and pick it up about 2 feet off the ground, slam it on the floor, and it stops. And we walk out of there with about $250, which is a lot of money.
Yes, it
Anyway, the dance started at 8 and it's now 10:30. And Mike says, I don't think it does anything good to go to the dance. And I said, I don't need it. Let's head back to Kansas City. So we're driving back, and Mike's driving, and he looks over at me and he says, see, I told you we'd get lucky. First time I met Mike's, not his wife, his mother, I thought he had changed his name. Because Liz had a habit of saying, damn it, Mike! I told you to do, damn it, Mike! I said, Mike, did you ever look at your birth certificate? Damn it, Mike. But she was a great gal, and she babied him something terrible. Even more than Judy. And we were always getting in trouble with her. When she would go to Oklahoma to visit her mother, that meant we would have a party at Mike's house. Of course, his sister Jody would come over after the party and inspect it to make sure it was cleaned up. But one morning after the party, it was more like noon. Mike says, fix your hamburger. I said, okay. So he gets his frying pan out, electric frying pan, sets it on the countertop, throws a couple of hamburgers, and we go do something. Come back, and the countertop was not Formica. It was like linoleum, and it was electric frying pan. I don't think it had any insulation on it. Anyway, there was a big bubble right in the middle of the countertop, and that got a lot of him at Mike's. And every time I came over from then on, she would bring that up. Well, then, after 1961, I got my grade point average up at JUCO, and went back to Pittsburgh, and Mike and Ron Reed and another guy named Ron Adams were going to join the Air Force. Vietnam was really going on maybe then, and if you weren't in school, you probably would get drafted. So the three go down to the recruiting office. Ron Reed gets in, Ron Adams gets in, Mike doesn't. When he was a kid, he got shot with a shotgun or something that messed his, I don't know. Anyway, he flunked the physics. Again, he got lucky. Then he really gets lucky, and he went to work for TWA, and that's where he met Judy. And I would venture to say that Mike had a bad heart. I would venture to say that Judy added at least 30 years onto his life, if not more. Because she turned his life around. And we got to enjoy him a lot more. And it's kind of important when you're best friends to have wives that like each other. And my wife Enola and Judy hit it off pretty well. And we took lots of vacations. They came down to Arizona and visited us. We took a cruise or two. And it's unusual to have a best friend like Mike. I will miss him terribly.